3 million cases of bunions are created each year in the US alone. I have a 3-step approach to this. 1 is wearing a big toe spacer. 2, in a shoe that's shaped like a foot, so your foot can function as it was designed to in the first place. And 3, walking backward, ideally with resistance. This is a toes first activity. This is like Mother Nature strengthening for the foot. If you're like me and you had those nasty jammed in toes, all of a sudden now you're in a shoe where your toe can spread out, you have a big toe spacer, you're doing your backward work. It's like my feet came alive. So I'm not saying this is like an end all be all for the feet, but I just think if you weren't aware of those 3 really natural things, let your feet be like this with the toes functioning, and then reverse out life's overuse forward by going backward. So whatever you want to add to your foot regimen, go for it. Those are the 3 basics. Now let's look at the 3 basics going up into the ankle. I think all of this would absolutely help the ankle, but it also should be known that when your shoe has an air pocket, you're 4 times more likely to sprain an ankle. This was found in an Australian study over 20 years ago. I haven't seen any American studies on this. So I've complained many years, always said, man, someone can make a great business out of a basketball shoe that's shaped like a foot and doesn't have air pocket. So that's what I'm wearing. We make that. That's one thing. Got to get it out of the way. Have to know that data. What really sucks and hit home for me, not only did I have ankle sprains in basketball, but my wife, her figure skating career ended because of that data. Specifically, she was wearing the shoes with like the full pockets all the way across, thinking it would make her jump higher in her off-ice training. Her coach actually had her play basketball and do different off-ice training. She sprained it so bad, she says to this day it was the worst pain of her life, and she's had 2 kids. And then she re-sprained it 5 more times that year. What was she given? She was told to make ABCs in water. That was the extent of the rehab, ABCs in water. So, number 1 for the ankle, know that data about the lifted heel. It's not a theory. It literally magnifies the size of your ankle sprain when you land. This is just physics. Number 2, know how to floss. It's super cheap. I hope it never happens to you. Ever since I really mastered this, I haven't had an ankle sprain, knock on wood. And this is not something I do regularly. This is something I did to get my past ankle sprains back to normal. By putting a little tension, you're now able to create resistance. And if your ankle hurts, this actually helps reduce the pain. But we're not doing it for the long-term compression effect. In fact, the guy who made the RICE formula, rest, ice, compression, elevation, Dr. Gabe Merkin, 40 years of research later, he said, no, that's actually not right. His first 2 now are movement and exercise. This allows you to do those without pain. So I'm just suggesting a short bout of applying that resistance. Now you can add resistance to any natural ankle motion. You can get circles, you can get up and back, you can go to the side. Without this, I don't know if my ankle would have ever gotten back to normal. It hadn't for years. Then I had another major ankle sprain. This saved my ass from the pain of the sprain and then getting it back to normal. You see, now my split squats, I have full range of motion in that ankle, and I didn't used to have that on my split squats on the right ankle specifically where I had that past sprain. So flossing, know how to use it, hope you never have to use it. Then number 3 that I think you should know about is Bob Gaida. Bob invented these tib bars many decades ago. He called them DARDs, D-A-R-D, Dynamic Axial Resistance Device. By the time I found his work and was fired up and wanted to get one, no one was selling them. Didn't exist anywhere. Meanwhile, watch a freaking sports game on TV. Medication, 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 medication. Just because something is marketed, that doesn't necessarily mean that's proportionately what we need in life. So marketing creates huge shifts in what actually occurs in life versus what should occur. So if it wasn't clear, I did not invent tib bars, far from it. I did help market the crap out of them back into existence. And I actually did that long before I ever sold them. I missed out on, I went on the Joe Rogan podcast, didn't sell my own tib bar or anything like that. So I got into it honestly because I couldn't find one American made for a reasonable price, and I wanted to. It's not even like I'm stuck on American made. I make stuff around the world, but is what it is. That's what made me think, dang, I want to make a tib bar. So our current process is pretty neat. This thing you can see is heavy duty. You don't even have to have a clamp for it. just comes with this. It's a molded process. So this is still American made, and still super strong, but we're able to get it closer to the price of the ones that aren't. And that I get a lot of messages from people like buying them on Amazon being like, this broke. And I'm like, yeah, that's not mine. They're using knees over toes in their marketing. It's not mine. So hopefully this kind of helps solve that problem of people having tib bars breaking because they're trying to get cheap ones that I'm not even attached to. So those are the 3 basics I think everyone should know for the ankle. Again, not an end all be all, but this stuff has worked so well, so simply. It's a duty to spread this as common knowledge. Know that you're 4 times more likely to sprain your ankle when it has an air pocket or pump in it. Know how to floss. Gives a massage-like effect, circulation, strengthening. And then know how to measurably strength train your ankles over time for years. It's gonna get simpler from here. I only have 1 key for you on the Achilles. You have a lower, deeper calf muscle that relates very much to the Achilles, the soleus. Think sole, like going down to the sole of the foot. And my advice for that is to train calves with the knee over the toe. It's really that simple. If your gym has a seated calf machine, you are in luck. Seated calf machine, done, out, finished. If you don't have a seated calf machine, for example, let's compare here. Your gym, if it has a seated calf machine, 99.99% chance there's not the same seat, sit down, calf, sit down, tib. There should be a seated tib machine next to the seated calf machine. So that's something I made with Sorinex. I don't really want to do like commercial gym equipment. Sorinex does a remarkable job. They've treated me super well, and they now make a seated tib machine you can have next to your seated calf machine. Meanwhile, at home, very easy to get a tib bar, very hard to load that calf enough. I'm going to show you why it's hard. I'm also going to show you how to solve that. So you might think, okay, well, just set yourself up and get in this position with load. And this is true, but go ahead and try it. This muscle is so strong, and this is not the same as a seated calf. It's actually the same as a seated calf in terms of the function. So like if you're in rehab stages, this is fantastic. But to get really strong for sports and stuff, you're not lifting the machinery. A seated calf has the machine. So like single leg on a seated calf machine with 45 pounds is way harder than what I'm doing here. Also, a seated calf machine has a seat. You're actually lifting some of your body's weight. Here, I'm only lifting my leg's weight. This isn't moving. So this, for high repetitions, is actually my advice. If you don't have a seated calf machine, and if you're still in the process of getting your knees pain-free to be able, pain-free enough to be able to load that soleus without, so now I'm lifting my body. Now you add 45 pounds with the knee over the toe on a calf raise. This, yes, I do believe is sufficient now, but that requires the knees to be in a really good state. So this is one of the things that low-key helped me because I went so long without a gym that to make myself able to do what I want to do on the basketball court, I had to do so many of those, which then made me have even healthier knees. It's like an isometric for the knee, meaning iso staying the same and measure. So the knee is just staying in the same spot. We're just getting that over the toe. Sorry, I'm blocked there. Getting that. You could start here. You could start with a very little bit. So like imagine someone who can only do this without knee pain or Achilles pain versus someone who can do this with weight. So this is actually like a little snapshot of why basketball, the same game for me, used to destroy my knees, cause me tears, surgeries, painkillers. Now, pure joy, it's super easy for my knees. I've measurably trained to where now I can handle the forces of basketball. So it might actually be a little gem for you to have to face how much ability do you have in this position while you actually are trying to make your soleus protected. So only one key there for you on the soleus, which is, or on the Achilles, which is measurably strength train the soleus. Probably also helps to do all those other things. So I'm not saying for the Achilles to not also be strong in the tibialis, to not also be pushing backward, but building on that, boom. So if you're doing that, you're ahead of the game on top of those other things. And then shin splints, that's the one that actually hampered me the most in basketball other than my knee pain. I used to have to put pre-wrap and tape all over my lower leg because it was so painful to play basketball. I particularly had the one like in there in the inner shin. Well, I had all three of these problems. Weak, jammed in toes, decade of lifting weights, but not for my shins. And I thought calf training, especially seated calf training, was ridiculous because those weren't like power movers for your jump. So to me, shin, what's the key of shin is actually just, I think shin protection is a summary of the ability of your foot, ankle, Achilles. So you're getting that tibialis muscle all the way here. That tibialis actually wraps around to the inside there. You're getting that soleus. So those are like your two largest lower muscles there, tibialis, anterior, soleus, in terms of big, large muscles that relate to the shin. And then obviously think about the foot. The less the foot can do, more is coming into the shin in the first place. So just by training those abilities, now I can do crazy stuff on my shins, all kinds of bounding, any kind of plyometrics and stuff I want, and never have to worry about shin splints. Once again, this video is not an end-all beyond these subjects. It is my attempt to get down to the simplest common denominators that you can do, upon which you could build anything. So I hope this helps. Have a good one.